Good morning to all you beautiful people who got up on a Saturday morning and joined us at 10 a.m. It is always lovely to see your familiar faces and names, as you know. A special welcome to those of you joining us for the first time. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Stella Foti, and I'm founder of the wellbeing travel company, Wellbeing Escapes. And the reason that we do these wonderful online events on Saturdays is that during the pandemic, we introduce them to help empower our clients and our community with information to keep you healthy and happy, because I thought we really needed that at that time. And because I was having fun and I enjoyed it and I knew everyone was benefiting, we continued with them, and we've been running them for over 2 years. So if you're joining us for the first time, I hope you enjoy it and you come back and join us for future events. And it's really, really good to be back. I hope you've all had a lovely summer. So we had the break during the summer because, again, I felt after being cooped up for so long, I had a sense that people wanted to just get out away from the screens. We've spent so much time with screens that we needed to just be out there and connect with people in the flesh. And we had our first in-person event. We did a forest bathing in Surrey back in July, and some of you joined us, and it was so nice to meet you in person and give you hugs, and yeah, it was a really lovely time, and we're hoping to arrange more of those throughout the year. So now I think it's the right time to introduce our events again with all, I won't go into it, we won't talk about it, but with all the craziness and uncertainty that is going on in the world, and specifically our country, but all over the world, I feel like now is the time more than ever to keep our minds and bodies healthy. And we know, we've talked about this many times in the past, but we know that the state of our emotions and our mental health can affect our physical health, and also vice versa. So those of you who come frequently know I'm very passionate about us being on the subject that we are holistic beings. So I'm very excited that we have a range of events coming up that will help you stay healthy in your mind, body, and soul. So before we start with Lara today, just a quick reminder, post your questions in chat. Please keep yourselves on mute so that we can not disturb others. And at the end, we can take it off mute, and if anyone wants to ask Lara questions with their voice, they're very welcome to do that. So, welcome, Ms. Lara Morgan. So Lara, I did put this in the email that she's a powerhouse of a woman, and honestly, that is the perfect description for her, because she really is a powerhouse of a woman. She created and built a huge business that she sold for over 20 million before she hit the age of 40. And since then, she's written a book, she's running 2 companies, she's an investor in a number of other businesses, she's a mother of 3 daughters, she does a lot of work for charity, she looks after her husband too.
Sometimes.
Talking about that sometimes. And she's also very passionate about sports and cycling, and she is literally a whirlwind of energy. I'm going to tell you a personal story about Lara. So a number of years ago, Wellbeing Escapes was selected to be part of this program that Goldman Sachs runs that supports small businesses. And they invested in us as leaders, and they kind of gave us a training, like a mini MBA type thing that they did with us to give us tools on how to grow our businesses. And they would run these great events, and actually they still do them. It's a really good supportive community, but they ran these events for entrepreneurs. And I made an effort to go to them, and most of them were really good, but one that I attended was exceptional, and it was a talk by Lara. And something about Lara just really got to me. I felt really, really motivated, but she also kind of challenged us, and she asked us some really difficult questions. But what really got to me about Lara was her authenticity. And she was so honest about her own experiences. And I just thought, when you're in the business world, you hear a lot of kind of polished people who tell you how brilliant they all are, and they actually a lot of them make you feel kind of inadequate in a subconscious way. But I have walked away from, lots of kind of business talks feeling like, oh gosh, I wish I could be like that. I'm not like that. But Lara really was real, and still is very real. You'll find that out. And so since then we've been in touch. I ask her the odd difficult question every now and again, and she helps me every now and again. And I'm honestly really, really excited about having you here, Lara. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really, really happy to have you here. So we've got quite a bit to go through, but if we can start off with, tell us like how you started Pacific Direct, because that's quite a unique story in your 20s to start off this business and grow it,
So I mean, I'll tell a quick story and hopefully give some valuable takeaway for perhaps younger generations as well, because I was 23. My dad had gone bankrupt when I was 18. I got a job. I started to sell. I had no qualifications, didn't go to university. There may be people in the room that are thinking, should I be forcing my children down the university route? Well, actually, I desperately wanted to go. Had a place at Loughborough. But short story long, I traveled on a bit of a road, and I started the business at 23 because there were no jobs. It was 1991. So it was a bit like, I think, sadly, the possible likelihood of recession is high. And I didn't even know what the word recession meant. So that just shows you what a class 1 idiot I was. But I came back to UK. My other half was doing an MBA. I needed to get a job. So I had to make a job. And the only job skill I had was selling. So I genuinely found myself, and I laugh because I still can't believe that I borrowed some clothes to go to my first meeting. I somehow lucked out by getting a meeting with the Dorchester. And I walked down Park Lane giggling to myself because it was the first time I'd been on the Monopoly board, literally thinking, oh my God, this is seriously expensive, because I remember Park Lane being blue and the one we always fought over. Anyway, so I sold some. It took me 9 months, by the way, because again, running a business is like a construction project. It's twice as long and double as much of everything: energy, attitude, intent. And I started Pacific simply because I needed to make a job, and I sold some pre-threaded sewing kits, which now I understand because I wear glasses. Then I didn't even understand them. And off the back of that, 17 years later, we had a pretty successful exit. I was 39 when we did the deal, and I'd made a million mistakes along the way, but the truth is that it was the team of the people that I had managed to beg and cajole and love and culturally understand, because I was the idiot 23-year-old when I started the business. They are the people that made Pacific basically the world's #1 supply company, making for Penhaligons and Floris and Bulgari and Asprey and Elamis and the White Company, the miniature toiletries that people nicked and took home, basically.
And still do.
And still, well, hopefully, well, actually, I'm a real...
In hotels and stuff like that, yeah.
But actually, the good news there is that they are mostly turning to dispensed products, and hopefully my sad creation of the plastic ocean is something that might be a thing of the past with miniatures.
Yeah. I mean, in those days, we didn't know any better, did we? But so I mean, that's a lot to achieve in 17 years in your early 20s, pretty much. And okay, you've given kudos to your team, of course, who helped you do that. How did you feel while you were? Did you feel out of control? Did you feel in control? How did you manage to grow that business? Because there has to be a driving force behind that.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I think, I don't know how it happened and I don't know why it happened, but I had a teacher when I was quite a little girl, and she always said, just do your best. And it was very much backing up my parents' argument, which is if you turn up and you do your best, it doesn't matter how you achieve as long as you've done your best, because that's good enough, right? Doing your best. So putting everything in. And then the other thing that I had is I had an amazing I guess, upbringing, which you don't appreciate at the time when you're some, teenager or early 20s, where my parents believed that anything's possible as long as you put the hard work in and you continue to educate yourself. So I would literally go to WH Smith's and buy books in the business section. That is how I built a 20 million pound company, other than I did one course at Cranfield, and then I started to get sort of excited about learning about business. So I went a bit to Stanford, and those were amazing experiences, but I felt constantly scared. I didn't know that we'd invented a word called imposter syndrome, but I guess you might refer to it as that. I think that's a stupid syndrome. I don't think we need to invent any more syndromes in the world. I just think we need to try and teach better coping and confidence skills. I was always on a roller coaster. So I say this when I'm public speaking, and I think it's particularly pertinent for probably majority female audience. But when I was fat and ugly in my head, and my husband knew where I was, and he might even have had sex actually, but I usually was unknown by my children, and my business felt like I was going down the tubes. And on the great days when the business or the role was great and we were making progress and I was excited about my work, my children didn't know where the hell I was, and my husband definitely didn't, factor in, because I couldn't exactly juggle it all. And so there were also days when actually for a nanosecond I felt sexy and good, and my parents, I'd looked after them a bit, and I'd done a bit for the family, and my children knew my name and the company, and it was a nanosecond, because I see it as this kind of seesaw, Stella. And actually that's at the point where I went and did in 2001 I did a course on something called the life plan, and that was where I kind of built my chart around the pillars and the bits of the pie that are important to me. So you might have a bit of the pie for family, or each for children, and one for Charlie, my husband, and then the business and my other needs and wants and my health and my well-being. And ever since that life planning course, I have, I'm a routine. I put my keys where I know I can find them. My husband doesn't. He drives me nuts, right? I'm not a hoarder. My husband's a hoarder. And, opposites attract. And I think there's something really powerful in that. But my routine has evolved over years in order that I can cope with the utterly ridiculous amount I want to achieve, because that's just the goals I've set myself. And I like my life, and I like to be full on, and it's not always perfect. And sometimes I'm a miserable bitch from hell. So I go for a run.
But once you go for a run, you come back as a nicer person, right? Okay. So let me take you back again to Pacific Tourette, where it was, overwhelming, and but somehow you have this energy and this internal power to keep going and moving through it. And that's your personality. That's what I see as traditionally an A-type personality. And it's interesting. I think we have a lot of clients like you who are very successful and they achieve a lot, but they're seriously burnt out. And I've also been in that, in that situation too. I think a lot of women do go through that. I don't think we've got any men on today. But a lot of women go through that because we're trying to be all things to all people. And as you were saying, you wanted to be something to your husband and to your children and to your team. I feel sometimes in, my business is nowhere near as large as yours was, but sometimes I feel like I'm everybody's mother. I'm my team's mother. I'm my husband's mother at times when I, and then I do turn into a miserable bitch. But then, I'm the mother of my child and all of these things, and sometimes our clients, friends, and yep. And it's really, really overwhelming. But it can drive you to a state of burnout. Okay,
yeah, and I can relate
about it. If you're not careful, tell us about, because you did, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you had a burnout without realizing you had a burnout, right?
Yeah, I would say, during COVID, let's be very clear. I went into COVID, and actually I have investments in 7 entities, and I had 5 general managers, and annoyingly going into COVID, everything was going in the right direction. Isn't that a marvelous thing? it's not so marvelous if you come from a travel hospitality background and your luggage company ain't going to sell any luggage and your hotel business hasn't got any hotels to sell to. And the Scentered Wellbeing business was completely focused on spa therapy. So there was none of that. So that was 3 going up the what's it without a paddle. I had a yoga business, which was then doing completely the opposite, Yogi Bear, meteoric. You could have filled 2 bottles with sand and called it fitness equipment. So I had a mix, and it was, I've never worked harder. I mean, ironically, at Pacific, at the height of Pacific, I had 476 staff. We traded in 110 countries. I had factories in China, the Czech Republic. We had 17 languages, 9 offices, and we supplied globally 110 countries around the world. So I look back at that and I go, holy cow. And then I go, COVID has been so much harder than building that, the COVID situation with our investment portfolio. By the way, I know nothing about investment still, but I'm still learning and I'm making mistakes. But the burnout kind of, it can be very gradual, I think. And actually, I think we know it's happening, but we're not admitting it is the problem. And I just one day decided I would go for a very long walk. And when I say very long, I think it was about a 5 or 6 hour walk. Now, to demonstrate what an idiot I am, I was probably on the phone for 5 hours and 54 minutes until the phone ran out because I was making calls to people. But actually, at the end of the walk, the calls that I had made were about resetting a lot of the things where I was going, actually, I'm going to give this to them. And one of the things that I find with executives, and I think every male and female has every chance of burnout when we get things wrong and we come out of our own personal routine or habit. And that's why I'm invested very heavily in one particular brand. But that mantra, and ironically, my mum created this mantra, but it was stop, inhale, and reset, because I was lying to her when I was running Pacific at one stage. And I was twitching with my eyebrow. I was so tired. I had this blood twitch on my vein on my arm. I was hanging onto seats to try and get air into my lungs. I was suffering from stress. I didn't really believe in stress, so I was deluding myself. And I was telling her I was fine, absolutely fine, traveling 221 nights in a year. Of course I'm fine. I can breastfeed and I used to travel halfway around the world to make a bloody birthday cake, right? Because my mum had made my birthday cake. So irrespective of flying in from Asia, I would make a birthday cake and walk around the garden in the summertime trying to get this blessed sponge to cool down so that I could ice the bloody thing before the children woke up, and I'm crazy. But I now look back and I wouldn't change those things for the world, Stella. But what I realized is that fundamentally, if I'm not good, nobody else is good around me, right? And that's where, the be kind to yourself is so necessary. But what we've got to stop doing is thinking that looking after ourselves is a treat. That's just the wrong language, right? Looking after ourselves is just a must-have in daily life. And I'm going to be really crass and not very British, but I'm fucking wealthy, and money doesn't buy happiness, right? Yeah. It doesn't buy happiness, right? So I've proven that because I've never been lower, having become a multimillionaire. So I can speak from only experience, right? And the burnout effect of me then going, actually stop, inhale, and reset, and start to really put yourself in a routine means that, whilst I got up on a Saturday morning and I happily do email, I have a plan and a routine, and it makes me feel happier that I've got through that bit. And I've phoned my mum and I'm taking her to Stourhead to see the beautiful trees today, and the leaves are changing, and I'm excited. And between you and I, I've also planned to ditch her because I'll walk quicker, and she knows me too well that I can go, you'll have to take a shortcut, mum. But actually being honest, right? And saying, and this is the bit that I want to maybe talk about in order to avert burnout, is we have to have more honest conversations earlier, admitting when we need to do the reset so that we don't do the deep dive. And that's where I build in 3 days a year for me. I go and do my business planning. Now, people on your call will think, what sort of 3 days are those? Well, they're my best 3 days because they're all about what I love doing, right? Planning that the next year is going to be successful, getting a grip, stepping back. And I don't have to talk to anyone. I review everything. And I eat what I like. And sometimes that's large bars of chocolate and sometimes it's not. It depends how bad the year has been going into day one. And then we start to reset and we drink green things at the end sometimes. But I now know myself so much better, and I am not going to give away my routine time. And we talked earlier before we came on the call, I'm not a 5 a.m. start. I'm not going to show off and pretend that I need to get up at 5 a.m. to have a miserable existence and prove how hardcore I am, because I'm just not, it's not me. But 5:45, 6 a.m., that's the time I get up. Yeah. And then I empty the dishwasher so that I've ticked a point, and because otherwise I don't contribute, and I need to do my routine, and I drink a flipping large cycling bottle of water, and then I've got this, it is my routine that really works for me, and I cannot recommend the importance of it enough.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I just want to take a step back. I think there are two types of kind of work burnout. There's the one of the entrepreneur, who is ultimately responsible for people's jobs and all of those things. And, I feel that very gravely at times. I feel the responsibility of that. And then there is the burnout of the people who work for big corporations, large corporations, who have become committed to that business. We'll say people who work for you, people who worked for Pacific Direct, or people who work for Scentered now, people who are committed to that business are really professional, and they do their best, that same thing. And they maybe don't have the full responsibility of the business, but they do have responsible roles. And I'm saying this because, again, I'm seeing this, I see it all the time. I see it with our clients, I see it with friends, I've seen it with myself. If you're in charge of your own business, or if you're running your own business, you have a little bit more room to maneuver, okay, because you kind of can make those decisions. But if you're working for someone else, what advice would you give to people, given that you are, you're a boss basically?
Yeah, I mean, in the end, I mean, it's a great question, because I've now got a 24-year-old, a 21-year-old, and an 18-year-old, and we've been going through these phases for a number of years. And I think the best advice, and maybe it's therefore a good answer, I hope, is, first of all, you should, I don't care what my kids do in life, except I want them to be happy, right? Happy and healthy. So that's parameter one, because it's the only thing you can't buy. Yeah. Right. And by the way, the other most valuable commodity in the universe, which people don't talk about, is time. Yeah. Right. So time to self. So those are maybe some of the and then my final sort of most powerful motivating word is, it's your choice. Don't blame anyone else for the choices you make. So I've tried to bring my children up to say, try and make good choices. Never hurt those around you. And I'll come back to the answer, which is, choose your boss wisely. Right. And also, I mean, as a boss, let me just tell you, nobody says well done. You've got to get used to being alone. So you need to have a different team of business support around you, like you and I have conversations. I mean, literally this morning, a lady on the high street in Tisbury, you could see that she met me as I was running down the hill to come for this, actually. And she said, I said to her, how are you? And she said, oh, it's been really tough. And we had a brief exchange. And you can tell it's been really tough. So sometimes a kind word, but my point is that the humanity of the person that you're interviewing with, and then if that person is breaking those boundaries, you've either got to be in a culture where you're brave enough to go, actually, this isn't working for me, and I don't want to be treated this way, and move on, or you've got to be brave enough to speak up. And one thing that women, and there are majority women here, you've got to learn to say no. Set your boundaries, right? Don't let people impinge on, but also be grown up, right? Working for a boss is give and take, but be very clear. The boss owns the shares and you probably don't. And the boss needs to learn early that it's okay for them to bleed and sweat and cry, because they're the shareholder, they're building the asset, right? And if they're not sharing the asset and you're not a shareholder too, then there are parameters. You've got a contract and you work certain hours. And of course, there's that clause, which I will put in everything, and I'm honest about it. And I don't write, I will milk you for all you're worth. I do an exchange of values, which is I'd like you to work the hours required in the job. But when I recruit you, I say, I'm going to milk you for all you're worth. I'm going to get my ounce of flesh. But along the way, here are the rules, which is come to me if you're ever put in a position where you're ever in every way threatened or uncomfortable or feeling not appropriately treated within my culture. There's always an open door. You are not in a position where you get to stand still. So if you want to take a job where you stand still and you don't grow, don't join my company, because standing still is not an option. When I say I'm going to get my ounce of flesh, if you find it uncomfortable in any way because you don't get to walk down the sunshine corridor, which in my previous business, I literally painted yellow. I do things visually because I think they're really powerful. But today with this environment, Zoom, it's very difficult, much harder challenges. Don't steal from me, because actually this is a give and take relationship. But if you want anything, training, product, ask, I'll give it to you, right? Because I want to support you. So I set parameters, but you, the person going into work for that person, you need to set your parameters and go, actually, let me be honest about my home life. I'm a single mom, and every now and again, the kids get sick, but I promise you, if I have to leave early, I will make up the hours, right? Or we need to have a conversation that says so I employed a guy called Barry in Pacific Days. My team brought him to me. They said he's just lost his wife. He needs to be at home to pick up the kids at 3:15 every day, so he can only work till 3. I'm like, bring him on. Bring Barry on. Best salesperson. He's still with Pacific today. And those are the things where that good exchange of what we want to do and how we want to achieve at work, the purposefulness. And when somebody is being pushed too hard, reset the boundaries or leave. And by the way, great job market at the moment, so you can leave all you like. Harder on. It is true, right?
Yes, no, it is true.
I mean, we were laughing. Well, we weren't laughing. We were bemoaning.
Yeah.
Right. Good recruits are hard to find. But by the way, so are good bosses. But you can find them. And I think the dinosaur boss is hopefully growing up. I'm not sure that's the case in the finance world, but it is in lots of worlds.
Yeah. And I really believe in, I like your honesty again, because what you're saying is, this is who I am. This is what you need to do if you work for me, but I'm always approachable and I'm always open. But I think I really like the idea that you can just not stand for it if it's not what you want to do. I've just seen, I think I've seen a lot of people who have done so well in their careers, and they've become very senior in their roles. And then it's not necessarily their boss telling them to work harder and all of this, but it's just, they feel
self-inflicted.
It's self-inflicted, and they feel responsible, and it's part of their identity in a way. And then they can't get the basic things of their lives done, because they've given their lives to their jobs.
But there's classic boundaries, and frankly, that's where we're all adult, right? So I'll give you a really petty example. It probably make the people laugh, but irrespective of me being a total hooligan CEO, traveling, being away, not just the traveling half of the way around to make the birthday cake, but I used to do all the washing, all the bed changing, everything. And I was even through the point of selling the business, where clearly we can afford maybe some people to do the cleaning and stuff. But I was trying to set an example to my girls to say, actually, Daddy and I need to have different roles. And it sounds very sexist. I have no issue with it, because actually, without my husband, we wouldn't have a roof over our heads, in the sense of it wouldn't work. The drains would be full, etc. So I think you've got lots of partnerships in the world. You've got the partnership with your boss or your partner shareholder. You've got a partnership with your partner. You've got other partnerships with your children. And there are different things that you need to demonstrate to show that you care and love, and that there's ways of learning. I'm doing the washing and I'm doing the cleaning out of stuff because I'm showing my kids that actually we all need to clean the toilets from time to time. And actually, how are they ever going to learn? Because actually they're not getting this wealth. I don't want to destroy my children's life by, and I've done enough reading to understand how I want to treat the wealth. But, and they do have the privilege of growing up in a pretty nice home. But what I'm saying is that self-inflictedness is again something that we're all grown-ups now. So I went through a stage then where I employed a housekeeper. Changed my life. by the way, I nearly fell out with my husband out over it, because he's like, I don't want a stranger in my house. And I'm like, that's simple, because you can move out if we don't have a housekeeper, because I've now done my bit. Right. Yeah. We've done our bit. And we had that conversation. He was bloody angry. And in fact, it was really funny, because what I did is I did that childish thing, which is I just stopped doing the shopping, stopped doing the washing. And it was like, I guess we're going to need a housekeeper now, aren't we, girls? And I laugh, but I'm telling you that because actually we have the power to reset. That's my point.
Yeah, okay, and that's the thing. But I want to bring it back to the routine, because this is something I've been exploring recently about, kind of my life, having been through crazy times over the last 2-3 years, having issues around staffing, recruitment, everything else, from running a decent business before. It's still a decent business, but now I've had to get my hands, really back into the business.
Yeah, me too.
So many different levels. And that just takes time. It takes so much time. And I do my best and I enjoy it, but it just takes time. And so then you lose track of all the time, which is for you.
But that's that thing where are you have to ring fence and protect.
Yes, exactly. Right? And that's about the routine.
And it has to be booked in the diary, to the point where the other advice that I would give, which I have grey times, nobody knows except Mandy, by EA, and we call them grey because we think it's funny, but it's that time where you do catch up, because everything is always going to become overwhelming in some people's lives. So then recognize that, have an awareness, Stella, and put in your diary times where Mandy has no idea what I'm doing, but she knows I'm doing catch up of some kind. And it might even be, I got to make a cake, or it doesn't matter what your grey time is, but that's your unplanned chaos catch up time. And we literally book it in the diary. I'm a workaholic, you're probably a workaholic. There are people pleasers, they need to say no. And there are perfectionists, they need to be shot. I can talk
about those. I want to hone in on that a bit more, because we talked about that in the event summary.
Right.
So the people who there are, it's identified, it's proven there are 3 types of people who are prone to burnout. The first ones are the workaholics, and that would be you and me to some degree, and I'm sure a good few people on this list here. What drives that workaholism, do you think? What is that about?
In my case, and I will touch upon it because I feel very privileged, the position that I'm in. When I began, there is no question that what drove the workaholic is I grew up in Asia. I had the privilege of living in Hong Kong. I saw others work around me. My dad worked really hard, but I wanted to have a foundation in life that gave me choice. And I had planned that, right? So my workaholicism was, I had goals and I set myself goals and I was in a hurry. And actually I wanted to get to a place that then allowed me choice for the rest of my life. And I've been very lucky that ultimately at the age of 40, that workaholism in my case achieved a goal that unfortunately 57% of businesses started don't even make it to the 3rd year. And we need to be very aware and cognizant of the support and the congratulations that we should give those that have failed but tried, because actually we don't do that well enough in our country. And that includes also from a career point of view. I've got a child that's just gone on from finance into cordon bleu cooking. So we need to celebrate change and bravery as well. So the choice, going back to the question, the workaholic. So then the people pleaser. Oh my God.
Hang on, I haven't finished with the workaholic.
Okay, so
I'm going to come back to the workaholic, because the workaholic is driven either by extreme goals, like yours, which was, I want to make it by this age for whatever reason. What makes those goals happen? Is it the feeling? Is it because we want to feel like we have security?
I think there is something in that. And for me, I've met many entrepreneurs. Like I grew up in an environment where my dad gradually went bankrupt. We gradually had no money, couldn't pay the school fees, was a miserable time, never wanted my family to be in that position. Okay. That was the driver. For you,
it's security. But a lot of it is about proving something to ourselves and others.
But that was the same thing as well, because my dad went bankrupt, but he always you know, when I asked him for help at the beginning of Pacific, he said, oh, buy a typewriter. And at that point, I never asked him for advice again.
Right. Okay.
So I guess sexism
or and you know, to prove ourselves and to make a point and prove.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of women, by the way, Stella, who
exactly
are trying to do that. And I think there are both there's always pros and cons, right? And I think maybe there is a pro and con to having that driven background where maybe you haven't had what you wanted, haven't had it all given to you, which the irony of which is you then become the entrepreneur that sold a business and has a level of security, and you're terrified that you can't get your children to be hungry. How ironic is that, right? So you have that mental determination to try and make your children miserable enough that they get it and they make their own way in their life and they have an interesting journey. So that type of workaholic. What's the other kind of workaholic?
No, I was just, well, this is what I was trying to get into. The work, you know, what drives the workaholic to become the workaholic? Is it to show, to prove,
prove something? I'd say it's proving something.
To prove something to yourself, and also this, you know, wanting the security and feeling worried about the alternative, really, of not being in that situation. Okay, I'll let you move on now. So the people pleaser. Let's talk about the people pleaser, because that's the other person who drives themselves to burnout.
Yeah, and I've met some of the nicest, kindest, and I have a daughter who's a people pleaser, and I'd like to beat it out of her. And because I've seen enormous misery because people haven't been taught that it's okay to say no. So she will run herself ragged and exhausted because she is the most generously giving, sharing. She'll live under a bloody flyover and give everything to her friends. She's an artist, she's a creative, she's an emotional roller coaster. But, you know, these are the people that, you know, they put themselves second to the point of utter exhaustion and misery, tears, and then illness. And I see it in my own child. So I've really got pretty close to it. And she's an artist, so we also see the moments of complete purgatory when she can't make a piece of artwork come to finalization. But I just think this is where maybe there's something in the parental way that we bring these people up that, I don't know, is there something in the behavioral mix of having the first child who's always the rule follower and the second child who, you know, and I do believe in some of that. And I'm quite serendipitous about where you come in your hierarchy of things and who influence you. I feel really lucky. I had a, you know, bombastic, competitive older brother. Is that why I don't mind going into a room full of blokes? In fact, I rather like it. You know, and that's difficult for a lot of women who don't like networking. But if I can teach everybody here just one thing to teach their partner or children, if ever you go into a room of networking and there's twos and there's threes in groups, that's the way, you know, people talk to each other. Always go to the threes. Don't go to the coffee table. The coffee's not going to talk back. But you can make progress by improving your network, because if you go to the threes, two people are talking and they've got eye contact and someone is left out, pick off that person. And you've now got a conversation, and that person is already grateful because they felt left out. Why aren't we teaching stuff like that in schools? So don't be a people pleaser. Start to learn skills that can help you, you know, get through the balance, because you're back to that diary. This is my time, and you need to have your time.
Yeah, I think some people are just naturally empathic and like that, you know. Some people are naturally people pleasers, and maybe, you know, it's just their character, and others are through situational circumstances like upbringing and all of that. But I think I wanted to bring these up for people to just stop and look at themselves and say, do I have an element of that in my character, and is that causing me burnout? And is it okay to say, no, actually, I don't want to do this? And I find, again, coming back to the whole female conversation, that there are some women who can do that at work, but they can't do that in their home life, and they can't do that with their friends, and they can't do that with. So I think it goes across all aspects of our lives. And we have to be conscious of it. And I know myself, you know, like, you know, you've got, like I said at the beginning, sometimes I feel like I'm everyone's mother. and at what point does that take over? And
but that's the point about having a life plan, which is,
yes,
if you have a life plan, you default back to, what have I agreed? What's my contract with me? What are my drop dead necessities in life that are for me, because I can't give to the rest without also looking after me, and they're looking after them. So as long as we all share that, and that's why some of it, I don't know if there are any Americans, but I will say that some of the brilliance of the American ability to take therapy on board, to go to get psychological help, or just a life plan.
Yeah.
I think there's a too Britishness about, actually, why not be ambitious? And particularly women. So I'd love to have a whole nother conversation about the fact that what is wrong with wanting to be successful, and why do our journalists completely shoot us down? Anyway, so that's but actionable.
Another day, but that's a good point.
Right, actionable, simplified things and rules that you've set for yourself, or we help each other set for ourselves. This lady I met in the street just now, I said, you don't need to be the general manager. You just need to make sure you've got a good one and that your team respect them. So why don't you get your team to help pick that general manager, and then they've got buy-in. So sometimes we also need to do a contract with ourselves that rewards us for better behavior. So, for example, in the early days of Pacific, I would reward myself and go and get my legs waxed. Please don't laugh. I know it was only 15 quid in those days, but it was a big deal for me. So I would be doing sales calls as well, Stella, as you can imagine, because I'd be trying to get the double whammy. But that openness with yourself and your awareness that you reward yourself because you need to change. Everybody does what they're rewarded to do, right? Everybody does what they're rewarded to do. That is human nature, right? If it tastes good, we do it. If we don't taste, we stop doing it. It's that simple. That's humankind. So be kind to yourself by rewarding yourself by being braver. And that's how we get. And so I try and teach. I've got a young woman at the moment who's had a horrendous week. I'm not going to go into it, but she lacks confidence, right? And a kind note, a small gift, an example of a shared case where we are vulnerable ourselves, which is why I was very honored when you introduced me as kind of, I think what you're trying to say is I'm pretty down to earth and approachable, and I can't help everyone. So invariably I have to say no. But I say it in a way to explain one of my boundaries is I can't help every individual one by one. So I choose to do events like this because I really hope that everybody goes and talks to somebody else about my lunatic asylum, and the fact that I know this in my head, that I've got a map and I've got a time frame and I've got a plan, and we need to be doing more of that.
Yeah. That's really, really interesting. We'll come back to that point about the life plan and the routine in a sec. Let's talk about perfectionists, because I know they're your favorite people.
I don't believe. Okay, so let me tell you how I don't employ them, by the way. Okay. Except obviously I like the financial side to be pretty perfect. Okay, and I'll explain that. You're a human being and I'm a human being, and I put out a piece of work and I think it's pretty good. And by the way, this is not me, because I put out pieces of work that are absolutely 80% good enough. And then I listen to my customer. Because actually, if I talk to you about your view of perfection, right? So let's say you're developing a new website of well-being, and you procrastinate and you want to tweak this and you want to fanny about that and you want to stick the logo. Nobody gives a toss, Stella, right? I don't give a toss. Sorry, one dog with sore leg has just entered in. I don't give a toss, because actually human nature is going to tell me I'm going to make a recommendation to make it better, because we're brought up to want to make better, right? So on the one hand, we started the call and we said, let's be the best that we can be. Well, actually, that means we also have to take on someone else's opinion, and we have to change and move with the times. We have to be a bit agile. So if the perfectionist spends all of this time waiting to get to market where every other person like me is getting in the race, I've got such a head start and such an opportunity. And by the way, there's 7-point-something billion people in the world. I don't think it's 7.2, because I don't think we've counted them all accurately. But I know that they're not all going to agree with your perfect vision. In fact, I guarantee that some people are going to loathe my style, right? But there's a few others that might like it and benefit from it, right? And so I have this really simplistic outlook that can't please all the people all of the time, the pleaser. I'm not going to be a sodding workaholic because life's too short and I've only got one. And as for perfection, I'm in a race, right? But actually the minds of the many are more valuable than mine all day long, right? Because I've been in business forums where I've absolutely loathed someone on introduction by nature. And then I've learned to meet them and grow with them, right? Because there's just sometimes a behavioral thing. They tend to be accountants and lawyers, by the way. But anyway, that's another thing. So what I recognize, if I stay open-minded, I can always learn from those people. So that's my view on perfectionism, which is different angles. Oh my God, different value. This is why I'd see it this way. This is why I'd see it that way. That's why one creator thinks a piece of work is done and beautiful and the other just goes back and does something, you know, that evolution. If I wasn't open to evolution and change, I wouldn't be an entrepreneur, because there is no business plan, not one business plan in the universe that ends up being exactly the business they expected it to be. It's just not there. So the job, the career, the people that are nearing burnout, there are a million other jobs. Don't kill yourself. Don't make yourself ill and miserable because you're having to report to a narcissistic anyway.
And as we say, and as you know, it's spoken by yourself, because you can make those statements. Money doesn't necessarily make you happy, right?
It doesn't.
Having, you know, mega bucks isn't going to bring you happiness.
Not going to bring you health. And if you don't have happiness, you won't have health.
Yeah, absolutely. Health and happiness is what brings about well-being. So we know that. So I want to talk a little bit about Scentered and some of your other businesses, because I love them, and I always love your stories behind them. So Scentered, we've still got people joining. Maybe they think that we've just started. I don't know. Anyway, people get times muddled up. So Scentered is the result of your Stop, Inhale and Reset, right? Let's talk about Scentered, because Scentered is actually a really lovely brand. Lara introduced it to me. God, how many years ago did you start it?
Well, I mean, realistically, I started doing the blends nearly 10 years ago now, but it, like all good Lara projects, the idiot in the room, having made for Bulgarian Penhaligon's and magnificent brands, I really thought building my own 100% natural aromatherapy brand that did therapy, mindful therapy, would be a lot easier. But it took me 4.5 years to do the blends, because these actually do affect mindset. They're not just a fragrance nice to have, albeit they are beautifully fragranced. Because I think there's something in the mindful impact, which is a scientific thing, and aromatherapy is absorbed into the skin and we affect our mindset. But I also think there's something in the ritual of that physical movement of stop, inhale, and reset. So, and of course, I think it is, just very briefly, because I think it's really good to show the depth of my stupidity and my mistakes. I came out with a balm this big. The real hero is the mini balm that you can stick in your pocket. And in America, you're not allowed to say this, Stella, because it's a pocket rocket, and that's something quite other, apparently. But I only discovered that recently. So anyway, moving right along, ladies, you apply this to your pulse points and to your temples and your and you can put it behind your ears for absorption. But the unbelievably powerful and impactful portability of this miniature balm can be a habit-changing tool. It can be a reminder. It can be a routine enhancer. Actually, we've got children with ADHD using it as a distraction tool. But the idea is that through portable mindful therapy, we stop, inhale, and we reset. And that breathing, so by the way, you can do this for free, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't buy all your Christmas presents from Scentered. But actually, conscious breathing, that thing where I was kind of lifting myself in my chair we need to have ways of dealing with stress. And in the end goal, and I mean, says she who carries around Scentered in her pencil case like a weirdo. I'm not a weirdo. I'm not an earthy, crunchy aromatherapist either. I don't know enough about it. But what I know is that if I walk out and I pick a piece of rosemary and I rub it between my fingers, my eyes widen. And actually, like lavender, I feel warmth and comfort and cozy. And through aroma, we change mindset. And if we do nothing else in the world, but we work on the mind, everything else gets better. So what a choice and what a joy for me to be able to say, I can take 1,000 years of therapy, modernize it, make it portable so it suits my travel and my lifestyle that I was needing. I don't have meetings with a diffuser. I don't shower with, I needed something portable in my pocket. And that's what Scentered's unique about. And ultimately, if we can give the gift of someone that is Stop, Inhale, Reset, that mechanism of injecting the oxygen and just not diving in. And by the way, there's that, as a child, if my mum said stop being a bull in a china shop, right? You know, that saying where you're always raring to go. And I was a, nightmare child, lots of energy, but actually I learned some things about Stop, Inhale, Reset. And I mean, laughably, I have a yoga brand. I'm rubbish at yoga. I do stretch, but Yogi Bear is brilliant. It's got the best grip performance yoga. I invest in stuff that affects the best qualities of life. So time to stop, inhale, gate 8 luggage, never wait at the baggage carousel because you never check in your luggage. You've got Yogi Bear because I need to look after.
Yeah, because I know much more about Scentered because I love it. And this is a lovely thing. I promise this isn't an ad, but I really like this because I'm going to share it with you. This is a little tin this is right up my street, actually. This is not up Lara Street, but up my street. I'm
rubbish at using these.
Yeah, but this is me. Candle with a little diffuser here, and you put it in, and then you start. Let me just take this off here.
You'll have to, so there's that. Shall I tell you, the escape balm has sandalwood. Yeah. So if you demo, so sandalwood, oud, and frankincense are the key 3 fragrances, but there are 21 other ingredients. It's an 100% natural balm, but actually Mindful Escape Set is 20-minute candle burn that you light, and it is your time. So it's a me time set. And I laugh because I went down to the kitchen this morning knowing I was doing this call, and I was thinking, oh God, I haven't used those bloody candles. I haven't had time, right? And I'm laughing because I'm just so imperfect. And today I will light one and I will think about you, Stella, while I'm doing my yoga.
Please do that, because it's a lovely idea, and it is about stop, inhale, and reset. And by the way, guys, if you're going to buy any, this Escape one is my favorite. It's such a lovely smell. It's
the perfect one for Escape. I mean,
it's perfect, but it's a really beautiful aroma. So it's a lovely brand, but I love the idea that it was born out of when you going through all this stress at Pacific Direct, and your mum said to you, stop, inhale, reset, and then this was born out of your own need. Usually we do start businesses that are born out of our own needs, actually. I mean, most entrepreneurs. And tell us about Gate 8. I don't know much about that.
So Gate 8's really a luggage company, but actually we've had a shambles during COVID. Nobody's been traveling, and now everything's uplifting. But we're a cruise supply specialist because the bag is engineered brilliantly, but the bags last forever. I also have Kitbrix, Kitbrix, and that's this. You can Google it, but this is the most. If ever you don't want a soggy bottom again, and I mean genuinely, this is molded. I sell non-soggy bottom bags, basically. Or actually, I got fed up of buying sodding sports bags. I got hockey players, but these pieces of kit where you can identify what's in the bag from the outside. And there's a whole series of, I will only
sports people, right?
Well, not just, I mean, literally, we were at the festival show this week. Festival people have cables, and they need to identify expensive stuff in bags that are so robust they're waterproof. And it's got a poncho, which is great for outdoor swimmers. And we only make about, I think, 10 different items, but I will not make something that the world isn't unique and different. And I will not make something that hasn't got sustainability built in. So, scented balms, I can refill, and I'm really proud of that. So if you go to when we do our packaging, more companies need to be, that is how simple and eco the packaging is. But actually, we've got to stop using fluff and rubbish, and we've got to start minimizing. So everything we invest in has a sustainability story, and sustainability, it's as important to have lasting and refill instead of this rubbish language about recyclable, which usually costs more money to do. Let's invest in less stuff, and let's refill the value, and let's get, because the other bit is that you know, when I talk about routine and my early bird and my exercise, all of that is because I've invested very heavily in trying to understand people types. And I have a privilege of being purposeful, but actually if we can build business purposefulness, so Scentered will be giving large amounts of money when we're in profit considerably into mental health, because my daughter's had some issues and there is no support. There is not enough. And so anyway, so time to self, multitasking, the idea that you share and give will always give you back. Those are the well-being things that I know, you know, a touch of kindness, me giving time to someone is my way of injecting positivity into me.
Well, thank you, because you've always been kind to me whenever I've reached out, and given me your short, succinct words of wisdom, and sometimes giving me a kick up the backside. So that's been good. And you did give me a really good advice a number of years ago, which was simplify, Stella, and don't try and do too much, which has really helped me, I've got to say. The other thing I wanted to just quickly come back to is this whole idea of, because you're talking about routine, I call it conscious living. Like, take control of your day, because I'm actually doing a course in that right now. And it's without even talking to Lara about this subject, I'm actually doing a separate course in it, because whether you're working or not working or whatever you're doing, I think it's so important to consciously plan your day, because as you say, the one thing you can't get back is time, and time is the most important thing in our lives as well as our health. Does anyone have any questions quickly of Lara before we sign off?
Yeah, I know you're going to time off, and if there is a question, great. Yeah. But I did write a list of idiot things, and I'll demonstrate it because I write lists all the time, right? Yeah. I'm a list writer, and I do them on my phone as well. So there's no excuse not to list write. You can do it with technology and whatever. But I just thought, you know, the discipline seems like a negative word, right? But actually, I grew up in a military household. And, you know, if you're going to a meeting, you have to be 5 minutes early, and you laughed earlier because I was on time, and I'm religious about diary dates, and I try not to be late. I'm not perfect. I sometimes am late because I'm trying to sell something, and that call was worth more than the next call, or, you know, I'll make a priority judgment. But take a breath, be you. These are actionable, I hope, takeaways. Perhaps after this call, write down, what would you do differently coming out of this call? Because this hour that you've invested in yourself may be a life-changing hour. I really hope it is for some of you. Somebody gave me the privilege of teaching me some of these things. So I think it's it's an honor to hand it on. So, because I want to see less misery in the world. And I think we have to be responsible for our own misery level. You have this choice in life. Choice is a big word for me. It isn't easy to achieve. So I'm not going to tell you this happens overnight. So clearly, I'd like you to buy my candle set, but actually it's more about, you know, be kind to yourself first, because that adjustment, and, you know, I don't know how early you're getting up in the morning, but maybe 20 minutes early makes all the difference for you to be able to plan that time in. You need to have a self-care routine. You need to accept that there are different personalities. I haven't yet shot a perfectionist, but I think the more we learn about the personalities that we're dealing with, and we're then brave enough to understand where we're weak and we need to say no, or where we need to have a reset. By the way, one tactic is saying, look, I'm really busy at the moment. Can you reach out to me in 4 weeks' time? And they forget because they're disorganized and they're not as disciplined as you might be if you want to get more out of your life. So I think discipline is a really powerful word. Time to self. There's nothing wrong with the double whammy of multitasking. I was making tomato chutney and getting an internet update yesterday evening because I ran out of brain power, but my tomato chutney is amazing. And I didn't waste the tomatoes, and I was too tired to do sodding email. So the other thing is cadence. I work best in the morning, and I need therapy most nights. And therapy could be chutney for me, and it could be something else for you. And then, for goodness sakes, reward yourself as you make change, right? Why do it? Why are you putting yourself through a purgatory of an effort if there isn't a reward at the end of it? Right? My reward is I'm going to have a really sodding, interesting life. And I'm also going to set a standard, hopefully, that makes people laugh and realize that if an idiot like me can do it and is still smiling, then anything's possible.
Yeah. Thank you. You're not an idiot, by the way. Stop calling yourself an idiot. Anyway, Jill, do you have a quick question you wanted to ask? You put your hand up, or was that not? Oh, do you have a question? No? No. Okay, she doesn't. That was a mistake. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, for your hour. I know it's precious. I know it's precious time.
Loved it.
And I, really, really enjoyed chatting to you. It's a great reminder for me personally, and I'm sure everyone enjoyed it. And thank you, ladies, for coming along. You see lots of lovely comments coming in, and we'll record it. Well, we have recorded it. We'll put it out there. So if you want to rewatch it, and obviously the people who, hey Stella, any holiday retreats for this kind of thing? Yeah, let's get Lara to run a retreat in her spare time.
That's what I need to do. Actually, it is. I mean, genuinely, it is a goal that I would like to get 10,000 women into a room and inspire them. So that's a goal for the end.
Yeah, it would be amazing. Yes, but thank you so much. Enjoy your day stay with your mother. And
oh Stella, I forgot. I'll get murdered if I don't tell you this. And also I'd love it if you feel that there's someone that needs a touch of kindness, please genuinely go to Scentered. And if you use the code Lara20, I'm actually having to kill it because too many people are buying off it, and my marketing director wants to kill me, but I'm allowed to use it for until the end of this month. So if you go to Lara20, you will get 20% off. But if anybody's suffering from sleep, buy the Sleep Well, because it is unbelievable.
Okay. Well, we'll do with the follow-up. Send me something and we can do a little.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be good.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great Saturday. And then our next event's going to be on the 5th of November. We've got Colin back, and we'll be doing a Kundalini yoga session on stress and overwhelm, and also just keeping calm during these crazy times. And so I'll let you know about that in due course. Have a good time. Have a good weekend. Lots of love. Bye.
Yes, bye.